Greetings, friends. Our theme for this morning is exploring what our treasures in heaven might be, and this is based on the teaching of Jesus in Matthew 6, verse 19 to 21, where he said, "Do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Now, when we think about treasures on earth, there's the obvious meaning to these, that we can so easily find our security in materiality, enough money in the bank, a secure home, reliable cars, and the assurance that our daily needs will be met. In our modern lives, we install burglar alarms to protect us from thieves breaking in and stealing. We buy insecticides to try to control the moths. And we use alloys that don't rust, all in an attempt to circumvent the temporary nature of these treasures on earth. But the issue is that no matter how much we try to secure our material well-being, somewhere deep down we know that life is unpredictable and will ultimately end. Nothing is permanent, and this fills us with dis-ease. Pema Chodron describes this as the queasiness of impermanence. But it's not just material possessions where we base our sense of security. It can also include our relationships, health, reputation, and social standing. And to rely on these for our sense of well-being is a very fragile basis on which to anchor our lives. And we can know this, but still be rocked by unexpected circumstances that show us exactly where we have been basing our security. I've been through a series of unfortunate circumstances recently, and it's really shown me how much my sense of well-being can depend on circumstances, and how my sense of stability can be rocked. And this is not a judgment. It's never a judgment on us, as much as a mirror, reflecting to us what we've been relying on for our sense of stability, how unreliable these sources of stability are, and where we are kept from being free. So what does it mean to lay up treasures in heaven? As a young person growing up in a typical evangelical Christian setting, I used to think that it meant winning souls for the kingdom, or having a strong faith, or pleasing God, or doing good deeds. But I've come to realize that these also can be part of our treasures on earth that we try to secure, because all of this can feed our sense of worthiness and identity. And this ultimately passes, even our belief systems. Heavenly treasure refers to what does not change with time and is nothing that can be measured or valued by our ordinary consciousness. No thing. It refers to nothing from which we can attain identity, security, or success, which is why it is mostly overlooked. So how do we know where our treasure lies? The clue is in noticing the circumstances that are able to ruffle or unsettle us, or leave us feeling threatened or insecure. Ram Dass has a lovely way of describing that your life is your curriculum. When you get triggered by life circumstances, when things are able to upset or snag at you, it shows you where you are snaggable, where it is that you are holding on to certain expectations or outcomes. And an illustration of this is captured beautifully in a story told by Thich Nhat Hanh, which I will read. One day the Buddha was sitting in the wood with 30 or 40 monks. They had an excellent lunch, and they were enjoying the company of each other. There was a farmer passing by, and the farmer was very unhappy. He asked the Buddha and the monks whether they had seen his cows passing by. The Buddha said they had not seen any cows passing by. The farmer said, "Monks, I'm so unhappy. I have 12 cows and I don't know why they have all run away. I have also a few acres of a sesame seed plantation, and the insects have eaten up everything. I suffer so much I think I'm going to kill myself." The Buddha said, "My friend, we have not seen any cows passing by here. You might like to look for them in the other direction." So the farmer thanked him and ran away. And the Buddha turned to his monks and said, "My dear friends, you are the happiest people in the world. You don't have any cows to lose. If you have too many cows to take care of, you will be very busy. That is why, in order to be happy, you have to learn the art of cow releasing," he continued. "You release the cows one by one. In the beginning, you thought that those cows were essential for your happiness, and you tried to get more and more cows. But now you realize that cows are not really conditions for your happiness. They constitute an obstacle for your happiness. That is why you are determined to release your cows." This is such a brilliant illustration of what we're talking about here. It illustrates how the things we thought were so important to us, it could be our reputation, security, wealth, or wherever we place our sense of value, the things that our lives are oriented towards. And as I'm saying this, just listen for the but in your head. But these can imprison us, becoming cumbersome and heavy. And so these are the things we're invited to let go of, gradually, one by one. Not in an ascetic or rejecting kind of way, but in this gradual easing of what brings us so much unhappiness and heaviness. Only in this way can we find true freedom and start to discover the deep inner well-being and richness that can never be taken from us. And this gives us an insight into what treasures in heaven mean. It's discovered precisely in the spaces left open when we let go of what we held onto and treasured for our sense of security, identity, and well-being. This resonates with a saying by Ramana Maharshi, the sage who was so wise, and I come back to the saying again and again: "Let what comes, come. Let what goes, go. Find out what remains." And this gives a lovely sense of what it means to have treasures in heaven. It's in the quietness and simplicity that remains when all that we grasped onto for identity, security, approval, and control is seen through and let go of. When all narratives to explain or make meaning are let go of in the face of the immense mystery of the fresh aliveness of this moment. Ram Dass said, "In simplicity lies the space in which one can plumb your own depths of being." In simplicity lies the space in which one can plumb your own depths of being. And these depths of being hold the treasure that no thing can give us. Laying up treasures in heaven means attuning to these depths of being that we tend to overlook when we cling and grasp onto that surface life. Knowing who we are aside from all of that earthly treasure is the pearl of great price. And as that parable tells us, it is expensive. It ultimately costs us everything, but is more valuable than anything we could collect or construct. Sometimes this pearl is described as knowing who we are as children of God. Sometimes it's called the true self, or even just this moment. And we need to plumb the depths of this to become stabilized in it, beyond the shifting sands of life's changing circumstances. Evelyn Underhill wrote, "The surface self, left for so long in undisputed possession of the conscious field, has grown strong and cemented itself like a limpet to the rock of the obvious." I love the way she writes this. Cemented itself like a limpet to the rock of the obvious. She goes on, "Gladly exchanging freedom for apparent security and building up from a selection amongst the more concrete elements offered it by the rich stream of life, a defensive shell of fixed ideas." She goes on to write, "That old, comfortable, clinging life, protected by its hard shell from the living waters of the sea, must now come to an end. That old, comfortable, clinging life, protected by its hard shell from the living waters of the sea, must now come to an end." But we don't take out our metaphorical guns and shoot down this crust of a self. We don't attack and kill the hard shell of a self by ourselves. It is cracked by the work of grace, by the suchness of life. And this usually doesn't happen all at once. It's the work of grace. And we can participate with this grace in becoming free of the grip of this hard shell by very simply and gently recognizing and then letting go of one attachment at a time, one thought at a time. This is why for me daily practice of contemplation is so important, because it's this letting go again and again that one has to habituate to, and to start to sense into what remains, what is left when we let go of all that is concrete, the rock of the obvious. When we let go of that, we start to sense the spaciousness, this immensity of quiet presence that is the stillness that remains when we let go. And this is all that is in our capacity to do, this letting go. Beyond that, it's the work of grace. And sometimes this can be searing grace. We know that. I want to end with one last thought. This detachment or letting go does not mean not loving others. It does not mean holding them at a distance, but rather recognizing the conditions that we attach to that love to give us a sense of stability and identity, and allowing that insight to draw us into a deeper, less conditional expression of that love. This is about knowing who we are in the spaciousness of heart that can hold all conditions, and allow ourselves to be held through it all. There's a tenderness and lightness with which this is all held. What Evelyn Underhill describes as the living waters of the sea, but it's this holding, this oceanic presence and tenderness in which our pain, our struggles, our frail humanity and all are held. And this beautiful holding tenderness beckons us deeper into itself, into the quiet immensity of the one who holds us. And this is my sense of what heaven is.